Herein we are only at the top of one of the lesser hills, from which we can faint, very faint view, and hear but distant throbbing pulses of the vast ocean, on whose swelling bosom the upborne, by whose wisdom-crested waves, all men shall ere long sail. As true lovers of our race, we ask good people to embark this with us anon upon an intellectual voyage across the deep, in the search of the fact and truths far more stately and sublime than those usually purporting to come from the supramundane sources. All truths are necessarily dogmatic, nor has any attempt herein been made to hinder their expression from being the same. Our great master and exemplar in virtue was dogmatic. Why not his followers? It seems essential at this point, but the writer should say something, not concerning the spiritual realms, but of the man's spirit, the self, the developed and developing monad. What is a monad? The reply is something quite analogous to, but not exactly, the Leibnizian particle, that which is to universal spirit precisely what an atom is to the universal substance or matter, with this difference: you cannot cut an idea into halves or pieces, for it is, was, and ever will be a unit. So is the monad. An atom of matter is divisible to infinity, a single grain of sand being, by a mental process, capable of disintegration so great that there were each portion to be separated from its fellow by only the millionth of an inch, yet the vast concave of the dome, the walls of the sidereal heaven, the awful height and depths of space, the dizzy steeps of the great profound, would not afford room to hold them all. Even though the worlds were rushed out of being for accommodation's sake, yet not one of these portions would be spirit, because that is indivisible. They can never be. It is a philosophic truth as well as a scientific axiom that matter is divisible forever, soul is not. Beasts have spirits, but not immortal ones, for the reason that they are the result of mere physical energy and natural elements acted on by the natural forces. Their mission is to serve certain uses, the greatest of which is that of affording, in some mysterious way, temporary homes for higher beings, or rather, for that is thereafter to become such as already alluded in to the article on transmigration. Nothing material is endowed with perpetuity, for nothing particle can ever be so. True, it is the spirit of a beast is many degrees finer in texture and more sublimated than the luminiferous ether by which we come in contact with colors. But the soul of a man is myriads of degrees more subtle in constitution than even the essential part of animals. The latter is particled, the former homogeneous, sui generis, deific in origin, peculiar in nature, expansive in power, infinite in capacity of acquirement, and probably eternal in duration. Comparisons are useful. Suppose, then, that the sacred rite is to be celebrated which shall call a new soul into outer being. At the moment of orgasm leaps forth from the very heart of the winged globe a monad. With the speed of light it rushes down the spinal column, supplied in its root with a nervomagnetic garment, a voluntary contribution from every particle of man's physical being. It reaches the neighborhood of the prostate gland, passes through it, during which it receives additional envelopes of a nature easily understood. Its next leap is to the prepared ovum, which it only reaches after taking refuge in a hollow shell, attached to what is called the head of the spermatozoa, which is itself is a half germ, the ovum being the other of physical structure. Imagine, if you please, a monad just incarnated in many folds. Its color is pearly white, approaching to the hue of pure fire. Its bulk, with investments about 1/10 that of which the head of a small pin, without them, about so much less than probably 1,000,000 might float without contact in a single drop of water. It envelops are the very incarnations and condensations of electricity and magnetism, and thus possess the power of repelling uncongenialities and attracting whatever is essential to its development during a subsequent to its temporary home at a gestative center. The essences in life of all the parent may eat and drink or breathe as fumes, odors, and so forth are gravitative to the precious point. And so the monad unfolds, and it envelops grow. the one destined to become a living active soul, the other temple of flesh and blood, in which it will, for 80 years, 10 more or less, exercise and improve its faculties and powers. This process is exactly analogous to whereby God himself brings humans into being, only that instead of having a female form to shield the monads, he must use matter in other forms, worlds, and substantial things. It is easy to see how the first human being was brought into existence, albeit the full statement thereof belongs to another volume than the present. The first part of the present, one merely giving an outline thereof. Man's body is of earthy. It serves the soul's purpose for a time, and when it can no longer do so, we die, because it is the nature of matter to decay and change. But the soul being of God, the Hanover, the Om, the sacred, the holy, the great mystery, lives on forever and forevermore, and in all human probability unfolds continually and incessantly. Could you procure a microscopic view of a monad, you would behold a perfect resemblance of a human being of infinitesimal proportions, standing at full length, but with closed eyes, in the midst of surrounding the protecting sphere, formed of something a myriad degrees more sublimate than the rarest imponderable known to science. Over the graves of newly dead may, on dark nights, be seen hovering the forms of those within them. Strange, ghastly, ghostly forms they are. The exhalations of the decaying bodies assume the shape and proportions of the living being, and affright the passers-by. Jung Stilling. Burn a rose, and then mix its acid with water in a bowl. Set it away in a still place, and in a few days a thin, glary scum will rise above to the surface, and arrange itself in the exact form of the original flower. Report of Agad. Assad, Science, Paris, 1834.